Sega is a multinational video game developer and publisher. The company was founded by Martin Bromley and Richard Stewart on June 3rd, 1960. And to this very day, Sega is still alive and healthy. How did it become so popular? Well, let's find out. Origins and arcade success from 1940 to 1982. In 1940, American businessmen Martin Bromley, Irving Bromberg, and James Humpert formed Standard Games in Honolulu, Hawaii. Their aim was to provide coin-operated amusement machines, including slot machines, to military bases as the increase in personnel which the onset of World War II would create demand for entertainment. After the war, the founders sold Standard Games and established Service Games, named for the military focus. After the United States government outlawed slot machines in its territories in 1951, Bromley sent employees Richard Stewart and Ray Lee Marie to Tokyo to establish Service Games of Japan to provide coin-operated slot machines to U.S. bases in Japan. A year later, all five men established Service Games Panama to control the various entities of Service Games worldwide. The company expanded over the next 7 years to include distribution in South Korea, the Philippines, and South Vietnam. The name Sega, an abbreviation of Service Games, was first used in 1954 on a slot machine, the Diamond Star. Due to notoriety received from investigations into criminal business practices, Service Games of Japan was dissolved on May 31st, 1960.
Hi, Randy.
On June 3rd, Bromley established two companies to take over its business activities, Nihon Garaku Bozan and Neon Kaki Sezio. The two new companies purchased all of the Service Games of Japan's assets. Kikai Seizo, doing business as Sega Incorporated, focused on manufacturing slot machines. Garaku Bazan, doing business under Stewart as Ultimatic Incorporated, served as a distributor and operator of coin-operated machines, particularly jukeboxes. The companies merged in 1964, retaining the Nihon Garaku Bazan name. David Rosen, an American officer of the United States Air Force stationed in Japan, launched a photo booth business in Tokyo in 1954. This company became Rawson Enterprises, and in 1957 began importing coin-operated games into Japan. In 1965, Nihon Garaku Bazan acquired Rawson Enterprises to form Sega Enterprises Limited. Rawson was installed as the CEO and managing director, while Stewart was named president and Lee Marie was the director of planning. Shortly afterwards, Sega stopped leasing to military bases and moved its focus from slot machines to coin-operated amusement machines. Its imports included Rock-Ola jukeboxes, pinball games by Williams, and gun games by Midway Manufacturing. Because Sega imported second-hand machines that required frequent maintenance, it began construction replacement guns and flippers for its imported games. This began the company's transition from importer to manufacturer. According to former Sega director Akari Nagi, this led to the company developing their own games. The first electromechanical game Sega manufactured was the submarine simulator Periscope, released worldwide in the late 1960s. It featured light and sound effects considered innovative and was successful in Japan. It was exported to malls and department stores in Europe and the United States and helped standardize the 25% per player cost for arcade games in the US. Sega was surprised by the success, and for the next 2 years, the company produced and exported between 8 and 10 games per year. Despite this, rampant piracy in the industry would lead to Sega stepping away from exporting its games around 1970. In 1969, Sega was sold to American conglomerate Gulf and Western Industries, although Rosen remained CEO. In 1974, Gulf and Western made Sega Enterprises Limited, a subsidiary of an American company renamed Sega Enterprises Incorporated. Sega released Pongtron, its first video-based game, in 1973. Despite late competition from Taito's hit arcade game Space Invaders in 1978, Sega prospered from the arcade game boom of the late 1970s, with revenues climbing to over $100 million by 1979. During this period, Sega acquired Gremlin Industries, which manufactured microprocessor-based arcade games, and Esco Boki, a coin-op distributor founded and owned by Hayao Nakayami. Nakayami was placed in charge of Sega's Japanese operations. In the early 1980s, Sega was one of the top 5 arcade manufacturers active in the United States as company revenues rose to $214 million. 1979 saw the release of Head On, which introduced the Eat the Dots game Namco later used in Pac-Man. In 1981, Sega licensed and re-released Frogger, its most successful game until then. In 1982, Sega introduced the first game with its isometric graphics, That's On. Entry into the game console market from 1982 to 1989. Following a downturn in the arcade business, starting in 1982, Gulf and Western sold its North American arcade game manufacturing organization by the licensing rights for its arcade games to Bally Manufacturing. Gulf and Western retained Sega's North American R&D operation and its Japanese subsidiary, Sega Enterprises Limited. With its arcade business in decline, Sega Enterprises Limited, President Nakayami advocated for the company to use its hardware expertise to move into the consumer market in Japan. This led to Sega's development of a computer, the SC-3000. Learning that Nintendo was developing a games-only console, the Famicom, Sega developed its first home video game system, the SG-1000, along the SC-3000. Rebranded versions of the SG-1000 were released in several other markets worldwide.